One thing that you definitely don't want to do when you travel is die. Or, for that matter, have to take advantage of that provision in your travel insurance that covers accidental dismemberment. And actually, you don't even want to be badly injured or even traumatized by being mugged or assaulted or anything like that. So today, I'd like to talk about risk and travel, but not about the things you already know or that you'd better already know, like that you need to be sure you have medical insurance when you travel, or that you need to check with the Centers for Disease Control or a travel clinic to see what vaccinations you should get way before you leave, or that you should bring a first aid kit, or that you should look the opposite way before you cross the street in England or New Zealand or any place they drive on the wrong side of the road, which, if you're in England or New Zealand, is here in the United States. What I do want to talk about is why you should always carry a United States $100 bill with you, why your friends are idiots, and 5 other things. Welcome to Globally Curious. I'm Seth Kugel, and this is our second season celebrating the publication of my book, happens to be right there, Rediscovering Travel, a guide for the globally curious. It includes a whole chapter on risk, which takes place largely in Rio de Janeiro, a beautiful but fairly risky place that I love. So if you're interested, all the links to buy it from a neighborhood bookstore or a monstrous multinational corporation are in the description or at globallycurious.travel. Okay, first risk-lowering tip. You should know that the #1 cause of death for travelers is not terrorism. You may think it is because terrorism is terrifying, it's right there in the name, but it's not. It's also not tropical diseases, which are also terrifying, like worms crawling out of your eyes and some such. Is that even real? I don't know. But in any case, that's not #1 either. Neither of those is even in the top 5. The #1 cause of death to travelers abroad, at least to American citizens abroad, according to the US State Department statistics, is motor vehicle accidents. The combined number of deaths that happen in car and bus and motorcycle crashes. So if you skip a trip to, say, Turkey, because you're worried about terrorism at the Istanbul airport, and then end up renting a car in the Dominican Republic or Thailand, you've made a really irrational decision, because those two countries are constantly ranked in the most dangerous places in the world to drive. Okay, there are a number of reasons for that, but just to name a few: lack of vehicle inspections, or it's easy to get out of inspecting your vehicle or whatever, so there's a lot of faulty brakes out there. Or if you do get into an accident, it's not necessarily like the US where you could just call 911 and an ambulance could come. There might not be an ambulance within 100 miles of you, so injuries that you might easily survive in the United States or United Kingdom or another developed country can be fatal in some parts of the world. How can you be safer without just staying in your hotel the whole time? If you're driving on your own, rent a safer car, rent a bigger car, rent a car with automatic transmission if you're not used to stick shift, or hire a driver to drive for you, and put on your seatbelt. I don't know why this is, but for some reason, people think they're exempt from using a seatbelt in countries where they see other people not using seatbelts. If you're taking a bus, if you're going from one city to the other, if you're going up in the mountains, whatever, don't necessarily take the cheapest bus there is. Ask around which are the safest bus companies. Spend a few extra dollars if you need to. And if you're renting a motorcycle, don't rent a motorcycle. Another cause of death, much more common than terrorism, is, can you guess? Drowning. So be extra careful. Don't even think about swimming where you don't know it's safe. And forget about sharks, by the way. Think more about riptides. Okay, #3, and this may be my favorite. When you're asking around before your trip to see if a place is safe, you know, you're talking to people who have been there before, ignore any friend who says something like, "Oh yeah, we went and nothing happened. It was totally fine. Don't worry about it." This person has no understanding of statistics or of probability. That's like the same friend saying to you, "Oh yeah, you can cross Broadway in Times Square with a blindfold on. I did it and I'm totally okay." You know, even a place where you have a 1 in 100 chance of getting mugged is a dangerous place. Just because your friend didn't get mugged doesn't mean you're not going to. Do some research. Check a guidebook, which has often very rational risk advice. Look at online forums like on TripAdvisor. You have lots of people there talking about their experiences. Okay, #4, let's talk about that $100 bill. In lots of places where you travel, tourists are targets of muggings or robberies or whatever. So here are 2 precautions for you. First of all, every time you leave your hotel or your apartment or whatever, think to yourself, is there anything I have with me that I would hesitate to give up to a mugger or a carjacker or whatever? If there is, leave it behind or back up the data or whatever. The second precaution is keep a $100 bill in your pocket at all times, an American $100 bill. Why? Because the last thing you need is for a mugger to be frustrated you left all your valuables back in the room and you have nothing of value with you. If you took a worldwide survey of muggers, I would bet 99% of them would say they'd be perfectly happy. And by the way, the reason to carry American dollars in another country is that you won't be tempted to spend it. Forget everything you learned from 10 years ago backwards. It's amazing how our minds work. Sometimes I even think that the wars of my childhood are still going on today. I think of, say, Lebanon as a war-torn country. And while there are plenty of security issues there, it is definitely not like the way it was. You need information from today. Many people think of Colombia as the most dangerous place in Latin America. I'm not sure why that is. But it's absolutely not. And how about the South Bronx, right here in New York City? I'd hate for visitors to New York to think they couldn't visit Yankee Stadium or the Bronx Museum of Art or some of the great Latin restaurants or even Little Italy on Arthur Avenue, so much better than Little Italy in Manhattan, just because of a movie they saw from the 80s or things they've heard in the past. Yes, you do need to get a good emergency app for your phone. Travel Smart and Travel Safe are 2 good ones. And if you put them together, they'll give you security alerts wherever you are. They'll show you how to dial emergency services when the numbers aren't 911. They'll help you find a good hospital, etc. But they will not help you one bit if your cell phone battery dies, which it very well may. Mine seems to die all the time when I'm traveling for one reason or another. So always be sure you have written down the emergency number for the country you're in and a list of good hospitals near where you are. If I were you, I'd do it on the back of a color copy of your passport along with your emergency contact information. And finally, 7th, evacuation insurance. Whether or not you need travel insurance depends on what your health insurance covers back home. If you have private American insurance, you're probably covered on the road and to some extent, but here's what a lot of people don't do and should. Get evacuation insurance. Some people haven't even heard of it. What it means is that wherever you are in the world, if you get in trouble, if you get hurt, if you get sick, and you can't access the right health care, this company will come and get you. They will transport you home on an airplane, or they'll transport you somewhere with a good hospital. It's their whole job to be ready to do this everywhere in the world. It's not their whole job. They will also come grab you if, say, a civil war breaks out where you are, or something really dangerous and you sort of can't get out. The insurance is really not that expensive, and it's really, really worth it for peace of mind, or at the very least, peace of your mother's mind. There are tons more safety tips in the book. Please give your own tips or tell me why you disagree with mine in the comments.